Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another X-Men review. And I didn't want to drag it out too long. I just didn't want it to be like the first thing out the gate that I want to review for my X-Men content review. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to Talkative Carl on YouTube, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Follow me on links in the description below, as well as my Patreon, where you can put in requests for certain reviews at a very affordable price. You can follow me on twitch.tv/talkativecarl to watch me do video game walkthroughs. Currently, I'm going through Jedi Survivors, so you can check those out live and chat with me whenever I'm live, as well as check out my Twitter. So yeah, past couple weeks so far, I've been getting right into some X-Men related content after I laid out a bunch of Spider-Man related content up to the point of the first Spider-Verse event, which you can check all that out as I cover different variants of Spider-Man, as well as the movies, the comics, and the TV shows, where the 90s show, MTV Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Man comics like 616 Peter Parker, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man India, Superior Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Miguel O'Hara, 2099 Spider-Man, etc. And check all that out. Now, currently, I'm going through X-Men related content. I already went through the first two movies, X-Men in the 2000 X-Men movie, as well as the sequel X2. Next week, I'll start getting to X-Men: The Last Stand, and the subsequent movies moving forward. I'm also currently going through the X-Men TV shows, starting with the 90s one, and I already posted the season 1 spoiler review of the 90s TV show, which you can find on my YouTube channel as well. And I will get through all the comics as well, obviously. But I ain't gonna go right into the team up stuff. I want to start with individual characters tangentially related to the X-Men team before we get into the actual team up stuff, so that way you can get like a feel of what each of these characters are about individually, kind of similar to how like the MCU started in phase 1, where we get to know Iron Man, then Cap, then Thor, and so forth. So I already posted my Cyclops comic review, as well as then the Jean Grey one, which is up on the channel, so you can check those out. And I fairly recently posted Jubilee. You can check that out. Didn't even realize Robert Kirkman wrote a Jubilee story, but yeah, you can check out my thoughts on that up on the channel. Now I'm covering today Wolverine, and then right afterwards I'm covering, now many people really speak on it as much, similar how many people speak on much on Cyclops and Jubilee, because I think I'm one of the very few people who actually love Jubilee. I'm going to be commenting on a excuse me, a one-off story about the Marvel X-Men character Archangel Worthington III, Archangel. So look forward to that. And I got some things to speak on that. But right now I want to cover Wolverine. I knew I was going to handle him early on, but I didn't want him to be out the gate, because everybody loves Wolverine. We all love Wolverine. But I think the problem with a lot of X-Men fans, I don't think it's the fans per se, but I think the studios in Hollywood for the longest time really, I mean, Wolverine is cool, he's always been cool. He's a great character, one of my top 5 favorite superheroes of all time. But like Batman, I think people lose focus on other characters along the way, and his popularity kind of, you know, took over everybody else, which is, I don't think it's very fair. It's similar to like Batman. People love Batman. Well, we can relate to Batman. Superman sucks, and it's like he's too good to go. No, he's that good, and and it's like you can't relate. He got alien powers and blah blah blah. And it's like I pointed out with Cyclops, because I'm pretty sure at some point when Kevin Feige, this is just my take on it, what need to be done with Cyclops, because because I think people who grew up watching the 90s X-Men TV show, I think the writers of that time only had a certain amount of comics to work with at that time. So of course they make Cyclops seem like a stick in the mud, but a rule follower, and Wolverine was the cool rebel. And so that's where people veered into, because we always gotta break the establishment, blah blah blah. Similar to how Batman is, and like Superman's like the altruistic. I won't say he's like a super rule follower, but if Kevin Feige fix, I won't say fix. Like Sarah's don't need to be fixed. He has his own area of expertise and what makes him cool. Just like you can't like apply what makes Wolverine cool and say like, oh well, everybody else sucks because they ain't acting like Wolverine. Spider-Man cool is because Spider-Man followed, like, it was about the responsibility, and you can relate to him because when you're struggling and you're trying to make ends meet and always trying to do the right thing. Cyclops, yeah, he's like a rule follower. Like, he's a good guy. He looks after people, and he leads, and that's what you want in like a strong man. You want him to be able to lead, and if you playing the cards right with Kevin Feige, you playing his cards right, you don't have to make it just like Captain America, but they're leaders and like altruistic guys. You can apply what make because Cyclops has some like various qualities that also applied to Captain America and to Superman. And you got, I think Kevin Feige would be a good idea to apply what work with these two particular guys and apply it to, Cyclops. It don't make him, because people use this word a lot. Oh, he's, Cyclops is a cuck to, Wolverine and Jean Grey, but it's like, that's not fair. I think, just like how Aquaman was a joke back in the day, you get like somebody like Jason Momoa, get some cool actor to apply to Cyclops, that can easily be turned around, and all of a sudden people will love, everybody will be like, oh my god, Cyclops is so dope. No, y'all didn't think he was dope back in the day until this actor played him because he's cool, so therefore you make Cyclops cool. No, you got to really make Cyclops, you got to give a damn about Cyclops. I don't think many people give a damn, and it's not fair. And just like I think like Aquaman has always been cool in his own right, just because he's not Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. They're cool in their own right, and that's what we like them when they're in a team, because it enhances each of their qualities in this nice little Chex Mix of a bag. And that's I don't want to put that out there because it's like it's really not fair. You raise one ship, but doesn't mean like you gotta lower the other. It's a bad kind of analogy, but you know what I mean. It's like you don't when you raising the love for Wolverine up here, it doesn't mean you gotta like, oh, Cyclops, oh, he's a lame, so don't worry about him. Don't do that. That's not fair. Anyway, this is one of the first, I like to see the first, I could be wrong, but it's definitely one of the first Wolverine solo series. It's only a 4-issue limited series, written by Chris Claremont and art by Frank Miller. And boy, man, Frank Miller knows how to like. There's certain images, man, that is like, oh my god, I love those. Especially when like they get close up on Wolverine's claws, it looks so cool. And this is one of the most iconic images of Wolverine to this day. It's always been one of the most iconic looks of Wolverine, where he just pops the claws and he just gives us like, like come here look. And also, this is the first iconic line from Wolverine that we all know. It's kind of like similar to like the line from Spider-Man about power and responsibility. Wolverine, this is the first time we hear the line, "I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice." This is the first time you hear this. You look it up. This limited series is the first time that line is ever used and is ever coined. So you give props to Chris Claremont, who came up with that. And of course, I mean, I love the blue and yellow Wolverine costume. I personally was never a fan of the brown and yellow. Personally, I understand why it's iconic. I just don't like. Something about it seems. I don't know. It kind of reminds me. You know those ice creams that the chocolate covered banana ice cream kind of things. That's what kind of reminds me of. And not that like I don't like that ice cream, but it's just like the brown and yellow does not match up in my mind as far as like a color combo. To each his own. It's just I think the blue and yellow was like that was. I'm a little biased because I grew up watching the 90s X-Men show, so that's what I always think of when it comes to a Wolverine costume. But the brown and yellow just does not sync to me. Anyway, the story goes Wolverine is in the Canadian wilderness, and he is tracking down this supposedly rabid bear, this grizzly. But because this grizzly apparently mauled some Mounties and some people, and come to find out that the grizzly was shot by a poison tip arrow. Now, the beef that Wolverine has is the fact that all this horrible tragedy could have been avoided if whoever hunter shot that arrow had the courtesy of finishing the job, because he just left the bear with that poison coursing through its veins, and it isn't like an immediate death. It's gone crazy, and it resulted in the death of a lot of these people. And so Wolverine, first and foremost, has to handle this bear, which you can see because you get to understand here for the first time what Wolverine's powers is like, and how he works. Yes, he has many people ask me a lot, like a lot of my fans who've been following me a long time always ask me like, what superpower if I want, and I would tell them a lot, like the main superpower I think was a lot more useful, and I probably thought it was the coolest one, was a healing factor, like Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that's the most useful tool. Sure, it doesn't make them invulnerable to damage, you'll still feel it, but you can survive pretty much dang anything. And significantly slows down the aging, where he just like, because if you follow along with the X-Men movies, which I'll get to once I cover like X-Men Origins Wolverine and then Logan, that from the time, because of course it wasn't until like several years ago when we finally understood, because we never knew, because Wolverine never knew his past. He couldn't never remember his past. And it was decades before we finally understood who Wolverine's past was. His, because we all know him as Logan and Wolverine. That's what many people just still call him. But we now know, or at least we knew for at least, several years, almost a decade by this point, I would like to say, that his original name was James Howlett. And he would have been born around like the 1800s or so. And when he's a mutant, so when he hit puberty, all that stuff, really came into play. He actually had like bone claws, healing factor, and kind of animal senses. And so that's why he's like, always connects with like certain, beasts of the wild, because he understood them more like that animal way of kind of like conversing with each other. There's like here there's a moment when like he come across some security dogs, and like he doesn't attack them. He just kind of like out alphas them, and it's like that's how like he understood. So he got heightened senses, a healing factor, and bone claws. His natural claws are made of bone, like a unique skeleton like that. It wasn't until like, because of course he went through all this like different forms of the military, until at one point he went through the experiment of the Weapon X program, which the leader, Dr. Cornelius, I think it was, who tried to turn him into like a weapon, and erased, well, I forget in the comics he erased his memory, but he erased his memory so he never knew what his past was. Excuse me. And so for the longest time we never knew what. You only get like bits and pieces of his past. It wasn't until like, I'd say mid 2000s, a little bit into the 2010s, when like I know it was around that time that I finally I think it was mid 2000 when like we finally like, okay, here's this like the past, like and like what's his real name. So but we still never call him James Howlett. I think there was times when like Sabretooth called him Jimmy, and I don't think anybody ever understood why he did that. But now, like, it's like, okay, his name was James. So his name is James, and he called him Jimmy. But we just went with Logan and Wolverine because that's his, that's his like kind of like name he's centered on. So, that's pretty much his power set. And there's always a joke about how short he is and everything like that. It's never understood like like how short. Like I think he's like, let's look it up. Like how. But I can't imagine he's that short. But so Wolverine's height. It's been inconsistent. All right. It looks like Wolverine is in the comics. Wolverine is 5'3". So yeah, he is kind of short. But of course, unlike Hugh Jackman, who's 6'2", yeah, technically Wolverine is supposed to be 5'3". So anyway, after Wolverine tracks down this bear, he mercifully kills the thing, and then goes back in town after he traces, because even though it's been days, he managed to get like at least still a hint of what the the poison where it fired, and tracks it down because you don't want Wolverine as an enemy. Honestly, oh my god, I just reminded me. Oh, the Wolverine game that was announced like I was like, it was like early last year or 2 years ago. That Wolverine game, it's like, oh my god, get me so hyped. And it's like, remember that, you know, that short teaser when he just in a bar and a bunch of dead dudes around and some dude's trying to sneak up behind him, and you just see like a, because you could tell, it's like, is that Wolverine? Because you can't really tell. You just see like a kind of like a plaid shirt or whatever is in a bar and is drinking this big mug of beer, and he just pops his claws, and it's like, well, that dude's dead. It's like, you don't want Wolverine as an enemy because he will track you down, and the fact that he lives such a long time, and it's like, okay, he will have ways to track you down. It might take a while, but he comes knocking at your door. Hooray! Like, you are like this beg, because he will not, you know, he is not the one to be, you know, to be trifled with. Because like, if I was one of his enemies, I'll go run to like the Fantastic Four or the X-Men or the Avengers, just for, you know, just have some kind of protection between him and us. Like, okay, just same in the jail. Do not let this guy touch me. And matter of fact, I remember there was a time when Wolverine teamed up with the Punisher on some kind of thing. I can't remember the exact case, but I'm pretty sure it was a comic. And like, you can tell, like, you know, how, you know, like, scared people was, like, criminals are of the Punisher. They tell, it was like a running joke that people tell, like, other criminals tell horror stories about the Punisher to scare, like, he's like the boogeyman to criminals. And the fact that, you know, people run to Wolverine to escape from the Punisher, and the Wolverine was like, that's the first time I ever had to be the good cop in this situation. They rather run to Wolverine rather than deal, like, if you're willing to take chances with Wolverine, you can tell how scary the Punisher is. And I was like, yeah, like, at least there's some kind of level of a code with Wolverine. There's at least a slight chance you'll still be alive when it comes to Wolverine, and he'll take you to jail. It's only when you're like, really, like, you know, like, he won't kill you unless he, like, you know, like, you put him in a kill or be killed scenario. If you remain cool and reasonable, he will at the very least, you know, okay, I'll haul you to, you know, Shield or the cops or something like that, and they'll lock you up. At least you'll be alive. You don't want to take a chance with the Punisher. So anyway, he managed to, you know, to get the scent of the poison and tracks down to into town to this bar. And it's like, you see like panels where he's just like, you know, all these different senses, and he locks on to this guy, and he's telling this guy, like, I'm taking you to the police because you left, you know, first of all, you know, I don't know how much of a real hunter you are if you have to use poison tip arrows on an animal that you're supposed to be hunting, even though I don't think it's legal to hunt a grizzly anyway. But anyway, obviously he didn't follow any particular protocols. From my recollection, from what, like, you know, true hunters, you know, typically say, that they keep wanting to, like, you know, like, stamp out the stereotype and go against, like, those not real hunters. And because real hunters respect the craft, and like, if you go after a particular animal and it's wounded or mortally wounded, it's your job to finish it, bring it back, and use every part and everything like that, respect the kill and everything like that. This guy did not do any of that stuff. He left that poison in there instead of, you know, taking a merciful route and put that animal down. And because he didn't do all that, it resulted in a bunch of people getting killed. So that all that death is on his hands, and he, you know, legally he'll be held responsible. And of course, this guy, you know, smashes his beer glass up against Wolverine's face, and Wolverine doesn't kill him, but he definitely, you know, beat him to near death more than likely. and given his metal bones, that's hurt a lot. So he stick around long enough just to make sure that guy is, brought up on charges and facing justice. When he gets home, he gets letters from his past love in Japan, Murako Yoshida. And apparently it's a bunch of letters he sent out to her that's been sent back, and he's worried about her now. So he because he's tried calling her, and multiple times, he getting stonewalled every which way, and so he's worried about her. So he takes a flight to Japan, and he meets up with an old work associate of his from like his spy days, and Asano. And Asano put him up into this nice little hotel area overlooking Japan. And oh my God, it makes me I really want to go to Japan. It's like my bucket list places to go, and it's like, I just love the Japanese culture so much, and I really want to at least spend like 3 or 4 days there, because it's expensive, getting there and back. So apparently she's been married off because there's like some honor-bound obligation, because her father, Sinjin Yoshida, who is just like this crime boss who's trying to get a foothold in Japan, he, as like leader, he has to he settle old wounds or settle old debts, and part of it is just kind of like just to make things go smoothly, he married off his daughter to this kind of smuck dude who beats on her, and of course like she's honor bound to stay with this guy, as all this super honor code kind of situations. And of course these two guys are just like horrible human beings. And so Wolverine's like, okay, I'm going there and I'm going to save her. Of course, Asano has a warning, like, we can't get involved here, given like, certain bureaucracies and red tape and all this other stuff. It's, like, I won't be able to help you if you get arrested. It's like, I can't do anything about it. And so Wolverine, it's like, fine with me. Like, I'm used to handle things on my own. So when he finds Yuriko, not Yuriko, as another woman showing up pretty soon, Mariko, and he is just, fury at this point. And like anybody would when he sees like a woman just beat like that by a person who's supposed to be her husband. And of course, Wolverine nearly was about to kill this guy until she stayed his hand. And because she still loves him, but she's telling Wolverine for his safety, like and like what she has to do as far as like what she's honor bound to do is to honor her husband and respect what her father is, his position and everything like that. He had to settle. There's nothing anybody can do about it. So Wolverine is about to leave until he gets ambushed and hit with these poison tipped, well, it's supposed to be poison tipped shuriken, but because of his healing factor, he is only like knocked out for a few hours. And he ends up waking up to Sinjin, Mariko and her husband, and the two sumo guys, as like bodyguards. And of course, Sinjin is like, you're just an animal, and it's like, you have no business here. You're just a gaijin, a white Western man, rough translation of that word. Of course, like what they call, like, black people, Caucasian, as like black, the black man. That's and just a little fun fact. Don't know much Japanese, but it's always been that. Certain words is always that kind of stuck in my mind. And so he challenges Wolverine to a duel using Bokan, Japanese training swords. And Wolverine asks, like, oh, why are we not using the real thing? Because you're not worthy. That's how low he thinks of Wolverine. It's like, you're just a beast. And I'm going to show my daughter what you really are. Now, rereading this, because I'm going to eventually do a spoiler review on the Marvel Anime's season 1 of Wolverine. It's only one season, but I already did the Iron Man anime season when I was reviewing a bunch of Iron Man related content last year, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to know my thoughts on that season. But rereading this, now I understood like where they got the concept for that season with Wolverine. They pretty much borrowed, heavily from this story. Of course, there are certain, key moments that's a little altered for the anime sake, but I was like, man, wow, that really like popped. It was like way back in my subconscious, and reading this kind of brought all that forward. It was kind of dope. So, and there's moments when like the action, where there's no speech bubbles, there's no thought bubbles. This is like just all action, and things are just blocked out. You only see like the characters in motion, and I think that's a really dope choice. So you just focus, and it's not many comics that does this. There's always some kind of speech bubbles or thought bubbles about narrating what is going on in your face instead of just sitting on it and just watching certain fights. It doesn't need to be like power beams fighting, blasting at each other. Sometimes it can be like a sword fight or hand-to-hand combat, and usually are those I want just to sit there on his own panel and you just watching it from panel to panel, watching that play out. And it's art within of itself. And of course, Sinjin using certain moves, they're hitting certain nerve clusters on Wolverine, and Wolverine stupidly decides like, I'm getting played here because I'm, he playing in Sinjin's field, and he ends up ditching the training stick and just pops his claws, kind of proving Sinjin right, where you're just an animal. Like when push comes to shove, you will go, fall back on that particular mode. And so he easily bests Wolverine and knocks him out. And before he passes out, he asks his daughter, like, is this the man who's worthy of you? And she just says no. And that you fought without honor. You're typically cheating here and there. So Wolverine is ditched in the middle of the streets of Tokyo and is woken up where it was some guys who was trying to mug him, and he was rescued by this femme fatale named Yukio. Now, if you remember the movie The Wolverine, there's like this young girl named Yukio who is palling around with Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in Japan, trying to, save Mariko from her father, who in the movie, if I remember correctly, is used to like owed a debt to Wolverine. It was during like WW2 and during the Hiroshima bomb, Wolverine saved him, and they made him the Silver Samurai, who is like a one of Wolverine's rogues gallery. And it's like, I don't know, like Silver Samurai is his own entity. It's not the same as Sinjin. It's two different people, but in the movie they kind of merged them together. Just FYI. So, uh, Yuriko wakes Wolverine up to the fact that the hand ninjas are about to converge and attack them. And this is the first time Wolverine actually dealt with the hand, and she had to explain who the hand was. This is the first time Wolverine actually had to tangle with the hand before. It's very like only a handful of Marvel characters who actually had to tangle with the hand before, as like Wolverine, Daredevil, Deadpool, uh, Black Widow. I like to say like a couple of the, I mean like there were some Avengers tangled with like the hand before, but it isn't like they're well known to do so often. Like Captain America, like the New Avengers is a story with the New Avengers leading into Secret Invasion, where like Luke Cage, Captain America, Hawkeye, Dan Roden was taking on hand ninjas. And of course, well, I like to say Hawkeye tangled with the hand a little, just as much as maybe like Black Widow, but not really that often. So yeah, but like I said, like Black Widow, Elektra as well, like Black Widow, Elektra, Daredevil, Deadpool, Wolverine, they are the primary ones who tangle with the hand more often than not than any other character. So this is his first time actually dealing with them. So they're taking them down, but Mariko gets cut, and of course she's a tough chick, so she really didn't scream, but she's about to get dealt a fatal blow until Wolverine steps in and just really handles this group of handlers. It's like there's a couple of times he went to like a Berserker Barrage. It's like the Berserker Rage, which is another asset in Wolverine's kind of thing. It's like he just go full beast mode in like a blood rage and just goes completely ham. You just stay the heck out of his way. And this is one shot here, like I pointed out how like the close-up look on Wolverine's claws looks so good, and it's just like the sheen, the shine that pops, and it's really to make the claws really pop as they pop, and because you get the iconic snip, because you want that. It's kind of like Spider-Man's whips. Kudos like Stan Lee to really give like these particular characters, when they're doing certain things, they make a particular sound, and he comes up with that sound and is right on the money. So every time you hear like when you're watching the Wolverine thing in an animated movie or live action movie, when he pops the claws, you hear that snip sound, just like when you hear Spider-Man, he's swinging through the air and he throws another web line, you hear that thwip sound. That is just iconic sounds that will always stick with you. I just love this look. This art, it'd be right on the money. Of course, is during the early '80s when certain looks and like art design, but there's some charm to it that you just cannot help but love. Like I personally am fine with like '90s type of art styles, but '80s has some dope art styles here and there. He and Yuriko, because she just falls in love with this guy immediately. She feels like they're kindred spirits, but he still has Miracle on the brain, and she's trying to like get him out of that. And Wolverine asks questions like, like what are you all about? And she said like, oh well, I'm in debt with this crime lord, and he sent these guys after me, so I'm planning on taking this guy out. And of course, like she wants, his assistance with that. And Wolverine, you know, it's like, okay, I'm not, you know, I don't want to like do all that. I'm going to try to convince this guy, because Wolverine, kudos to him, because there's certain, he's not like Punisher where he just kill and kill, like that's the arc he's going under, like, are you man or beast? And he's like, okay, like I want to talk with this guy first and convince him, strongly convince him that it's in his best interest to leave you alone. So he ends up going to this because ironically this crime lawyer is with his wife, who's on this kind of like a double date to this kabuki theater with Mariko and her husband, who's just like I said, like a shit human being. And it's kind of like one of those kind of, you want to speak on like how like those kind of insecure men that like overcompensate. This is the type of guy that you actually is actually of that ilk. He has to constantly prove like how a big man he is, kind of situation, until a real man have to put him in his place. So they go to this kabuki theater, acting out the play is acting out the story of the 47 Ronin, former samurai of this shogun who was killed by an enemy, and they lost their title, so they just decide to give back, get their shogun that they love his honor back, and stop. It's kind of like this injustice that need to be solved kind of situation. And I did like a movie, I did like a spoiler review a couple of years ago with starring Keanu Reeves, called The 47 Ronin, which you can find up on my YouTube channel. And it's not one of like not many people's like favorite Keanu Reeves movie, but I think it was pretty dope in and of itself that you should definitely check out. So you'll get the understanding of what how the story goes, at least like live on screen. But Wolverine notices that these guys aren't really actors; they're hand ninjas in disguise, and they're about to assassinate this crime boss. And Wolverine steps in because he doesn't want Mariko getting caught up in this mess, because she doesn't want to be, he doesn't want her collateral damage. And this is the first time Mariko sees Wolverine's berserker rage. And of course, this is all a setup where Yuriko, as the crime boss, and his wife run to the car. She set it up, and there's a bomb planted on it, and it blows up. And Yuriko does this, I guess it's supposed to be her catchphrase, where she says "gotcha" a lot. And it kind of reminds me, if you watch the sub version of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, because in the English dub, Jaden does his catchphrase, that's game, when he beats a fellow card player. But in a sub Japanese version, he instead says "gotcha," and this kind of makes me think of that. It's like it says, I guess like this kind of like a best translation. I'm not sure she actually says "that's game," but it's just something that got in my mind. So Mariko runs off in like, I don't want to say terror, but just like horrific, shock, that she saw her beloved in that way. She never see him really in that zone before. I'm pretty sure she's seen him like take on people before, but he still has wits about him. This is just full on animal rage. So this is also a setup by Yuriko, just to have that look of disenchantment of Wolverine broken. So that way it forces Wolverine to like, you know, stop pursuing her or think about her and think about her. Not think about Miracle, but think about her now and be the center of her world. So now, like, he just like, I broke the heart of the woman I love, and I, like I continuously dishonor her, so I'm just gonna leave her be. And he decides to get drunk, party with Yuriko. He goes to this bar, illegal bar, and takes on this sumo. And of course, there's not really a match when it comes to hand-to-hand fighting with Wolverine more often than not. And so he's, of course, with his healing factor, he comes out of like, because just like with Deadpool, it's like, people with healing factors, they can't really get drunk like they would probably like to, because they will quickly sober up pretty fast. And it's not, it takes some doing to really take down like a person with a power to heal fast. Typically, you have to cut their hair off because their brain is operates the healing. So you gotta cuff their head, if they don't have adamantium lace skeleton, cuff the head separated from the body for at a significant distance. That is a surefire way to deal with them, or atomize them to the smallest cell, so there's nothing to heal from. Those are like the two primary big ways to deal with that. Or you find a way to cancel their powers altogether and just kill them in the traditional way, then that's that. Or like I'm about to say drowning, but I don't know, you just kind of with Deadpool, like he has a healing factor, but he still has his cancer and it's in constant healing mode. So his healing factor is healing more times than the cancer can destroy him. So that's why he looks the way he does. But drowning probably won't really cut it, because the healing will just constantly put him in like a healing state, regardless. So you can't really fully neutralize him that way. So as they're walking out of the bar, Asano meets up with Wolverine, saying that as a crime lord, he's taking up spots in Japan, trying to establish dominance, and we I need your help in order to like stamp this kind of thing out. And Wolverine's telling him to like F off because it's not his problem anymore. Like I said, he is like feeling very low right now. So they walk off while being followed by hand ninjas. And of course, Yuriko turns out to be working, it was hired by Shingen to take out Wolverine. And of course, he's wondering why is it taking so long. And she then, of course, betrays the hand and takes them all out. And of course, while Wolverine's passed out, he still is like calling out to Miracle, and she's just like, oh my god, this, like, get over her already. Is one of those kind of women that that can't handle rejection, because it's like, oh, everybody wants me, and kind of mindset. It's like, how could you just not want me? It's like, what the hell, kind of thing. So she decides to like, okay, I'm going to sell things right here and now. And while she's changing clothes, trying to, plan on taking down Shingen, because he go just keep on sending ninjas, Asano, who's about to come in now, realizing, thinking it's a hand ninja, she throws one of her knives, ends up killing him. And when Wolverine happens upon his body, he looks at one of the knives, sniffs it, realizes it was Yuriko, and this is when she's about to step in, and he just tells her like, if you're planning on killing me, you better do it now. And of course, it was a complete accident, but she still did the deed. I don't think like Wolverine is in any mood to like. I doubt that Wolverine will like easily see it that way as being like an accident. He probably, it's hard to say he'll be understanding. It's like, you get caught in something like that. It's like, how can you not, how can you assume it, is anything, it's like, something that you can't, he won't be able to think she did it on accident. There's no way he'll think that way. There's nothing she can say at this point to convince him otherwise that it was a complete accident. So he goes and chases after her, but it ends up leading him into a trap in this kind of big Zen garden where a bunch of hand ninjas are trying to take him down. Of course, he just like easily takes them, but after he realizes like where he's at and how much of a wreck the Zen garden is, who's supposed to represent like order and peace, and now it's just nothing but like chaos and destruction. And this is where he has this big epiphany where it's like, animals know who they are and they live with that. But as I am a man and I question my way in life. There's like a line. The whole point is like, I at least try to be better. I fail if I go into like stagnation, but an animal knows what it is and accepts it. A man may know what he is, but he questions, he dreams, he strives, changes, grows. You took my dreams from me, Shinjin, but only for a time, because I'm a man, not a beast. I'm a man. So, because I like when he gets there, because it's like he goes in this bender with Yuriko, who's on like some kind of freaking death wish, because she's literally trying to have sex with him on top of like a train track when like a Japanese bullet train's on his way, and like, of course Wolverine, is abrupt enough to where he leaps out the way to avoid both of them getting killed. And he asks like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do something like this? Like, what, is there any other perfect death? Because she chose a life, like live by the sword, die by the sword. She chose this kind of life as like an assassin, and she wants like a perfect death, and a perfect death with someone she like sees as a kindred spirit. Of course, Wolverine, along this arc, he tends to choose like, the human way of doing things, even though he's struggling right now with going on those bender and he feels like he lost out on a woman he truly loves. But he chose life. He chose to go and try to talk with this crime boss, to thinking he's going to avoid Yuriko from getting like murked by these assassins. And it's like he chose reasonable outcomes or choices, rather than going through an animalistic way and just going on full on attack with no rhyme or reason. So he then takes upon himself like, okay, for a person like Shinjin, who's clearly the one acquiring power in different parts of Japan, in order to surefire a way to like kind of similar to how Daredevil takes down the Kingpin, he attacks certain spots that Shinjin operates, neutralizing certain like warehouses or certain jobs that his henchmen are trying to handle, and he's pretty much blowing all that up. Like each spot, he's just like kind of like taking down different operations that connects to Sinjin, and it's hurting him financially and embarrasses him with his peers, and that he covets more so than anything else. And so eventually Wolverine sends him a note. It's like, you know, tonight. It's like, okay, we're gonna sell this once and for all. And this time I'm ready. And so Sinjin prepares. All the while, as Wolverine stealthily, you know, infiltrates Sinjin's compound, he's taking out these henchmen. They're not killing them, he knocks them all out. He chooses, like, you know, like, yeah, I'm not a killer. They're not my enemy. You know, they're just doing their job. So I'm just going to knock them out. I can take them out of the equation that way. I'm not going to just make a complete bloodbath. Even with like the hand ninjas, like they're, like I mentioned in my Jean Grey review, where like hand ninjas are just, you know, technically undead dudes, kind of like ghouls that, you know, follow like a specific instructions or honor bound by their leaders in the hand. Once you kill them, they turn to ash. So Yuriko's husband, literally trying to like prevent Wolverine from attacking him, holds his own wife at gunpoint, but Yuriko comes in, saves Murako by stabbing this guy. And of course the guy gets a shot off at Wolverine, even though it's kind of like she tried to, you know, takes one of Yuriko's sashes to wrap it around Wolverine to essentially nurse him. And it's like, just like in my review in season 1 of the 90s X-Men, when Wolverine gets hurt by Sabretooth and they taking him to like the infirmary. Why? You know he heals fast. What's the point? But I think it's a little bit more strategic here, where because Wolverine is wearing something, because, you know, Miracle is planning on, because knowing what her father has become, and how much, you know, this guy is dishonoring their family legacy with his criminal undertakings. She planned on taking him down, even though that will be dishonoring the family. She was gonna balance that book by committing seppuku, like ritual suicide, right afterwards with their familial sword, you know, made by the ancient swordsmith Masamune, that was passed down from generation to generation of their familial line. She was planning on using that to take out her father and kill herself. But this is when Wolverine, you know, comes into play. Yuriko's here because she was planning on taking on Sinjin herself, but he's too good at hand-to-hand combat compared to her. So she wraps the sash around Wolverine, and because of this, now when Wolverine's taking on Sinjin, he is operating on Miraco's honor, which kind of negates the dishonor she was about to commit. This is completely acceptable because she's been praying to her deity, the Japanese deity, like you know, Atamarasu, like a way to around this situation, because her father is just a horrible human being, and it shouldn't be honor bound to somebody like this. So Wolverine is taking on Sinjin, and now he's like, he using his method of choice of fighting, while Sinjin using an actual sword this time. And like I said before, dark panels, we just seeing these guys just go at it with like certain like different styles of martial arts, wielding the sword and everything like that. Even though Sinjin has the better reach compared to Wolverine, Wolverine takes the blows and holds it down, and just like, you know, positions Shinjin in a way where he's in Wolverine's reach, and he just puts his fist up against his neck and pops his claws. And that is the end of that dude. Murako is just, you know, of course, you want to know what happened to Yuriko. She, even though Wolverine points out to her, it's like, look, this won't solve anything, but the fact that she saved Murako's life, he can't forgive her for what she did to Asano, but he will just let her go. And that's the enough of a is not necessarily accepting an apology, but as far as like he is willing to like, okay, we'll just part ways, and that's about as far as forgiving I can be at this point. And Murako and Logan gets together, pass things up. He stays with her, and then they ultimately get married. He sends an invitation out to the X-Men to invite them to their wedding. Of course, these two don't ultimately get together. Wolverine had like several like different like love interests over the years. I forgot, because I don't think because I don't know who, because he has a son named Daken, and I don't recall, because I don't know if like how important his mother was. It just could have been just a fling, or at least a short romance between Wolverine and Daken's mom, but because I don't know if she had any kind of significant role in Marvel comics like that. Let me just double check here. Her name is Itsu. It was like a very long time ago in Japan, learning from this guy named Bando Saburo, teach him how to live like a man, not as like a beast. Fell in love with Itsu. There was an explosion that caused Logan to accidentally kill a villager with his claws, and it resulted in Logan being banned from the village. And of course, at one time, sometime after that, Logan found Isu dead, murdered by Bucky Barnes, who was brainwashed Winter Soldier at the time. Uh, uh, the person under the Winters who put the Winter Soldier under his control was named Romulus, who took the child from Isu's womb and put it up for adoption by some Japanese couple. And he took on the name Daken, which means mongrel. I guess Daken in Japanese is mongrel. And Daken was always been like an enemy to Wolverine, for a while, not in recent years, but for his introduction, he saw revenge against Wolverine because Romulus told him that Logan killed his mother. And Daken, by the way, in case you didn't know, is a bisexual man. Anyway, so yeah, I was wondering, like, is Miracle is Daken's mom? Because Miracle is one of like at least a handful of women that Wolverine hooked up with, and since Daken's half Japanese, I was assuming it was Miracle, but no, it was this woman named Itsu. Just so a little fun fact in case you don't know. But yeah, these two don't ultimately end up together, obviously. But I'm not sure, like, like as far as like, I guess he should be like the only person that Wolverine would be like Wolverine's MJ in a way, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that is like the first Wolverine story. His first short issue limited series. That way you get like a feel for who he is as an individual. His power set, everything like that. It's hard to say what's my favorite Wolverine story. I read like a decent amount of Wolverine stories, but none that really sticks out like I can say by name. But this one's pretty dope. I always love like a good like comic center in Japanese like Tokyo, like if Wolverine or Psylocke or Deadpool, they have like an adventure in Tokyo. I always gravitate towards that. But this is pretty dope. Like, I had to do like at least one of the best known Wolverine comics in my X-Men reviews. So here's this. I highly recommend it. Very good, very classic artwork. I love the art in this. And yeah. So the next review I'll be covering in a few minutes will be Archangel's stories, a one-off event, short event, or not Elseworld, but that kind of style where it's just like just one storybook kind of thing. But leave a comment below. Let me know what Wolverine stories that you really enjoyed, and which I never even pointed this out when I was doing a bunch of these X-Men content. Which X-Men character is your favorite? Because Wolverine is my top 5, honestly. It was like Spider-Man, Superman, Deadpool, then Wolverine. No, it's like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Wolverine, then Deadpool. That's how it goes. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes for Archangel. So stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe, follow me in links in the description below, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.